Hello, Cleveland. This is the Oracle Speaks. I am the Village Elliot. I have some very happy music in the background because this is a time for celebration. The Cleveland Browns have just clinched a spot in the AFC playoffs. We have Lindy Hop music in the background. That is courtesy of Free Sound Music. Thank you very much, guys. I used to love Lindy Hop. In fact, I'd like to have a shout out to my old dance partner, Rhonda. She's out there somewhere. We used to do that every weekend back when I was I wouldn't say a swinging bachelor, but maybe in my mind I was. Rhonda was much better than I was at dancing. But anyway, maybe we can be dancing in celebration for the Cleveland Browns making the playoffs. But uh, I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about the future of the Cleveland Browns, specifically the salary cap future, and it's sparked because the Denver Broncos decided that they are going to jettison their quarterback, Russell Wilson, because of an unacceptable to them salary cap situation. And something like that is going to happen to the Cleveland Browns in a couple years. The Broncos have decided that they are going to endure in 2024 and 2025, and it may be the Cleveland Browns' turn in about 2025 and 2026. Let's talk about it, and let me adjust my sound here a little bit. Thank you once again, Free Sound Music. And I'm going to share my screen with those of you that have video via YouTube. Others will just have sound, and that'll be okay. I can talk to that also. I'm going to present my slides. And no, I'm not. I'm going to present, share screen, and window. Here it is. And slideshow from beginning. And I'm calling this Broncos Death Spiral with Russell Wilson foretells the Browns' future. It is a grim and gory story for Broncos fans, and it's going to be even worse for Browns fans. Now, what has happened? The Denver Broncos have decided to part ways with Russell Wilson. I don't know if this had anything to do with the blow up on the sidelines between Coach Sean Payton and Russell Wilson the other day. We don't know what that was about. They weren't really telling what it was about. But anyway, there was some kind of dispute. And I think maybe the salary cap might have had something to do with it, but I don't think they were really worried about that during the game. But anyway, they have only spent 39 million. Yeah, only 39 million. I'd like to have only 39 million in cap charges in 2 years of Russell Wilson in 2021 and 2022. That's not even the extension that he signed. You'll recall that the John Elway front office signed Russell to that extension because they wanted to have what now? A franchise quarterback. They can't win without the franchise quarterback. And you'd think, well, I guess we can understand why John Elway would think that way because he was the franchise quarterback. I would say that John Elway was probably the best quarterback that I've ever seen in his time period, certainly. Prior to John Elway, I thought that Terry Bradshaw was maybe tied with Roger Staubach for the best quarterbacks that played when I was around that I saw with my own two little eyes. But anyway, so they had a massive contract for Russell, but his contract was not fully guaranteed. It was not of the same scale as our quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, but the Broncos can get out for 39 million versus the cap in 2024 and then 66 million versus the 2025 cap. And so that means a total of $105 million for Russell to not play. $105 million over 2 years to not play. Now, the penalty for next year is not that outrageous. The place where it gets really nasty is in 2025. The hope is that the salary cap allowance will continue to grow thanks to increased profits in the NFL, and also the NFL community, hopes for lousy financial management at the national level so that we can have high inflation, which causes the salary cap to go up. It follows the national economy as well as the actual profits of the NFL. Now, the total investment would be $144 million for 2 years' work. And that's kind of crazy. Bad investment. Now, fans, I don't think, of course, you can do whatever you want, feel the way that you want to feel. I don't really think it's Russell Wilson's fault. He just said yes. He had no way of forcing the Broncos to give him money. The Broncos front office, and really this is John Elway's fault, they're the ones that gave him the money or that offered him the money, and he just signed for it. Their front office made this terrible deal. They've been replaced, rightfully so. It's not the players' fault for earning a lot of money. It's the Broncos front office that basically spent like drunken sailors and ruined their cap structure for the next several years. Okay, well, all right. So, the Broncos are going to be broke for the next couple of years, and they spent a lot of draft capital along with it. They had to give up draft picks to Seattle in order to pry loose Russell Wilson, which is crazy. They also gave up some very good players. Noah Fant for one, and then also they also gave up the starting quarterback that Seattle now features. That was not so good either. But okay, so they did that. But Deshaun Watson's deal is $230 million guaranteed. Guaranteed means guaranteed. So when fans, don't say we're going to cut Deshaun Watson and not pay him, because that's not going to happen. That cannot happen. It is a legal requirement that the Cleveland Browns have to pay $230 million unless you can get some lawyer to prove that there's been a breach of contract somehow. If Deshaun Watson, I don't know, robs a bank or something, or maybe you can find that there's some kind of moral lapse that he has that would free the Browns from their responsibility to pay him that $230 million. That would be unbelievable if that were to happen. But okay, so unless something crazy happens, they're on the hook for the full $230 million. And remember also that the contract is backloaded, that they didn't pay very much last year. It was only $10 million last year, and like $19 million this year. So they're only $29 million into it. There's $201 million that remains to be paid on his deal over the next 3 seasons. Ew. So that means that even, they've restructured the deal, as was their right for this season. But if they were to release him this season, say that they decided, we want to have Joe Flacco be the quarterback. Well, okay, great. If you were to do that, the Browns would be charged $156 million in 2024 against the salary cap, and then only $45 million in 2025. That's impossible. You can't do that. You cannot have $156 million against the salary cap, which people estimate now to be about $240 million, and you can't have 2/3 of the cap just go down the drain. There is no way that the Browns could actually make that happen. So they will pay down his deal in 2024 to the tune of $64 million, or they probably will actually restructure that deal, give him another year, and try to reduce that amount from 64 to something that's more manageable, let's say 35 million or something like that. He will be the quarterback in 2024. I should have said 2024, those who have visual. I said 2025, I meant 2024. And if they do decide that they want out of his contract, it won't be until 2025 at the earliest. And if they decide, even if they decide to release him in 2025, it would mean that they would have to take a $110 million cap hit in 2025 with a $27 million cap hit in 2026. That is reasonably affordable in 2026, but that cap hit in 2025 would be immense. There would have to be a lot of restructuring, a lot of magical maneuvering, basically, in order to try to fit that kind of cap hit for 1 year. A lot of people tried to say that, oh, the cap is not real. We'll just restructure things and get around it. It's not that simple. You can't hide $110 million when the salary cap is even when the salary cap is in excess of $250 million, which it probably will be by that time. $110 million is just too big to sweep under the rug. I'm sorry, that's not possible. Hoy! So here again, don't blame Deshaun Watson, please. Blame the Browns front office. In fact, I can't understand if it was really Andrew Berry that made this deal. I'm sure that Andrew Berry was interested in Deshaun Watson, but to actually spend this kind of money guaranteed, I just wonder if there was owner intervention or what, because it's really insane. One of the weird stats that I'd like to cite for you is that prior to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl last season, nobody, no quarterback, no team had ever won the Super Bowl while paying more than 13.1% of its salary cap to one player. And that was Steve Young, who received 13.1% of the cap allowance. I think that was 1994, the first year that the salary cap was instituted. 13.1% was the record for years and years until finally it was broken by Patrick Mahomes actually smashed, who went way beyond 13.1%, and he was paid 17.1%. I think he was in the high 30s of millions of dollars, but it's not the actual dollar amount that's important, it's the percentage of the cap that's really important. It's not just inflationary that we're talking about here. How much of the real value of the team, the payroll, is the quarterback actually getting. But Deshaun Watson next season, if the contract is not restructured, he's scheduled to get 26.5%. In other words, twice as high, percentage-wise, as Steve Young, the Hall of Famer, in 1994. That's just unbelievable. It just doesn't make any sense to overpay by a factor of 2. So holy cow. In addition to overpaying, let's not forget that the Browns gave up 3 number 1 draft picks. Oh, who needs number 1 draft picks? Well, every team needs number 1 draft picks. They gave up a round 3, 2 round 4s, a total of 6 draft picks overall. Now, the Browns do get back a round 6 pick, so I'm sure it's going to be the next Tom Brady, but you get the idea. They gave up a lot of draft capital. And this, too, is nuts. This is one of the worst trades in NFL history. By the way, other bad news is that the cap for 2024 had been estimated at around 250 some odd million. 256 was being thrown around for a while. But now they're saying, no, we think it's going to be more like $242 million. It's a lot lower than previous estimates. And the Browns have commitments right now for $274 million, and that does not include the practice squad, nor does it include replacements for injuries. So the Browns are overspent for 2024, even with rolling over the unspent money from this year. So they're going to have to cut people. And they don't have that many contracts they can cut, because remember, they've got a lot of contracts where they had the first year bargain, and then next year they have an increase in the contractual obligation to the player, and those contracts are guaranteed. So they have a lot of guaranteed money that's making up the bulk of that 274 million, and they can't really cut that much. They will have to restructure or cut some $40 million worth of current deals. So basically, the simple solution is that, well, can we restructure Deshaun Watson one more time? And hopefully that's what they're going to do. That way they can reload and still have a season in 2024. I think that's what's going to happen. So I don't want to be too doom and gloom, but I just want to explain that the magnitude of this problem is huge, and eventually they're going to run out of room, and especially if they decide that they're done with Deshaun Watson and they want to release him, then they're going to have to pay up, and there will be a massive salary cap charge when they do. It's going to be on the order of like $100 million if they decide that, well, we'd rather not have Deshaun Watson be the quarterback for some reason, whatever that reason is. Either they think they've got somebody better, or they just think he doesn't have it anymore, whatever the reason might be. Okay, I want to take a break. First of all, I want to have a public service message for a Browns charity. This is called Build the Bridge. This is another very interesting thing that the Cleveland Browns have started, where they attempt to create interactions between school football teams, and recognizing that different high schools have different cultures. And so they take football teams from different, let's say, backgrounds, different socioeconomic demographics and different racial compositions, and they introduce them to other high schools that have completely different makeups, and kind of get them to dialogue with each other and have interactions with athletes from the different schools. And I think it's gotten very high marks, very good reviews, and led to some friendships between athletes of different communities that would not ordinarily meet each other. It's been a very good idea, and this season the Browns provided free Super Bowl tickets and travel accommodations to Build the Bridge founders Max Stevens, Damian Creel, and Kahari Hicks. So that's outstanding. Congratulations to them. Coaches were also selected as the inaugural recipients of the Browns Inspire Change Jim Brown Changemakers Award. So outstanding work all the way around. Thank you all. And I'll pause now for some of our sponsors for our show. And Johnny Cleveland will provide messages, especially for those that are on the sound-only podcasts and Spotify and all those good things, and Apple. And there's a lot of other platforms that carry our programs. We're grateful to all of you for carrying us, and grateful to all the fans for listening to us. So let me take a few minutes to pause. And we are back. And where did we leave off? Okay, so I've talked about this enormous potential hit on the salary cap, especially if they decide to terminate Watson's contract early. Now, maybe it won't happen. Maybe they'll just continue Deshaun Watson's contract as it is currently laid out and decide that they're happy with him and continue to pay him $64 million or so, extend him out, keep on extending him as long as they can. But how much is it worth? Is it really worth that much for a very good quarterback? I don't want to use the term franchise quarterback because it doesn't mean anything. There's a very good article that you can read on the internet. It was produced by Ben Fox in the August 31 edition of USA Today. It's entitled, "How Much is Every NFL Quarterback Worth Against the Spread?" And so he asked a bunch of gamblers that he knew, more or less experts, I guess, to rank the NFL quarterbacks versus the spread. How much do they impact the spread? And this would include not just the quarterback's ability, but also would take into account, well, how good is the backup behind him? And so we won't mention who the backup is, but if your backup is really bad and the starter is really good, then that would be a big impact. Anyway, Patrick Mahomes, and this is at the beginning of the season. Of course, it changes as you go along and learn more about the teams. Mahomes was rated at 6.75 points. I think if you redid that today, it would be a lot lower because the Chiefs are having problems on offense. Josh Allen and Joe Burrow were worth, that's not right. Mahomes was rated over 7. I think it's 7.5. I think I put the wrong number there. Josh Allen and Joe Burrow were 6.75. Others followed from there. Deshaun Watson was rated at 5 points. They had him rated pretty highly. So 5 points against the spread is pretty good. At that time, he was being compared against Joshua Dobbs. Not half bad. I mentioned Geno Smith a little bit earlier in the show. He was not rated that highly, and one of the reasons was, according to one of the judges, that they thought that Drew Lock is a pretty good backup. So they thought, well, if they lose Geno Smith, they've got a pretty decent backup, so we don't think that losing Geno is going to necessarily impact that team too much. There is going to be some difference. They agreed that Geno was a better starter than Drew, but they thought that Drew was going to be pretty good if he had to come in. So, all right. Now, this is according to me at the bottom, for those who have visual. But I think that Deshaun Watson is in fact the best quarterback on the Browns roster. He will, in fact, regain his full 100% health. And he's probably worth more than Joe Flacco for an individual game. And remember also that Deshaun Watson is younger than Joe Flacco. I don't know that we really want Joe Flacco to play 17 games and then play in the playoffs. But anyway, for an individual game, I think that Deshaun Watson is probably worth 2 points more than Flacco, 3 more than Dorian Thompson. Yeah, I misspelled that. Sorry, Dorian. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And 6 more than P.J. Walker. I think there's a big difference between DTR and P.J. Thought that all along. Thought it was a mistake to start P.J. Walker over DTR. I think DTR has excellent qualifications to be a starter in the NFL. Well, by starter, I mean that he's good enough to start a few games in the NFL. I have my doubts whether at his size, and remember he weighs like 205 pounds or something like that, I'm not sure that he's big enough to make it through a 17-game season. But I think as a backup for a couple of games, he's probably a very formidable quarterback, and he can probably do a lot of the things that Deshaun Watson can do, execute a lot of the same type of plays that Deshaun Watson can play. So, yeah, I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is like halfway between Watson and PJ. But I also think that PJ can lead a team. He showed that against San Francisco. He started and won against the San Francisco 49ers, who are supposed to be the best team in the NFL, and I think they are the best team in the NFL. So PJ was really good enough to win. So I think the Browns are very well stocked at the quarterback position. It's not all about the quarterback. One of the conclusions that I would have is that over-investing in the quarterback is probably not a good idea. It is worth it to pay the quarterback a lot of money in order to have a good one, but not to overpay. And all right, so let me make another point, is that I believe that on defense, Myles Garrett is probably worth about 4 to 6 points, about the same as Deshaun Watson. In fact, most people would probably agree with that. I would tend more to the 6 points rather than the 4. I would say the same thing about players like T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, or Montez Sweat. All of these players earn about half of what Deshaun Watson earns. So I believe, this is just my opinion, that the rest of the NFL is screwed up and paying too much for quarterbacks and probably not enough for premier defensive ends. Now, let's talk about the counter argument about that. Now, this is what I'm talking about for one game in December of 2023. But you might argue, being a general manager, let's say, well, I think that the quarterback is going to last longer than the defensive end. So if I'm going to sign somebody to a 4 or 5 year contract, I don't know that I'm going to sign a defensive end to that contract, but I would sign the quarterback to a long-term deal because I think the quarterback is going to last longer. And I think that might be a valid point. That might be the reason why you're willing to take the risk on the quarterback rather than the defensive ends. You're not necessarily believing that the defensive end is going to sustain his high performance for the next 5 years. If we look at this list that I've given you of Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, and Montez Sweat, look again in 5 years, they may not be at the top of their profession 5 years from now. The quarterbacks, if we listed the top 5 quarterbacks, they might still be at the top of their profession. So, nevertheless, I would say that the Cleveland Browns probably overvalued the services of Deshaun Watson by about a factor of 2. And then trading away all those draft picks in addition to that probably pushed it to more like 3 times. They should not have given up that many draft picks plus all of that salary cap. That was just crazy. It was one of the largest bad trades in NFL history. It was not necessarily the most out-and-out dumb trades, but it was galaxy class because it was such a huge trade. There was so much draft capital and so much money involved. There hasn't been a deal that was as big and as dumb. And I just think it was a very large blunder. I do not blame this on Deshaun Watson one little bit. I want to make that very clear. I'm still a fan of Deshaun, still think that he's a very good quarterback. I have no problem rooting for him as a member of the Cleveland Browns. I think that the front office has done a lot of really good things, including finding Joe Flacco. But, you know, this is a really big mistake. They don't get everything right in football. You never do. But this one deal was really a bad one. Hopefully, they'll be able to get 5 good years out of Deshaun Watson. If they decide to terminate it early, it's going to be a very difficult process, and it's going to take a two very lean years before the team can recover. So let's just hope that somehow Deshaun is able to turn things around or at least stay at the top of his game for a long time. That's really what the Browns need to have happen in order for this to work out. All right, let's talk about Flacco-mania. Flacco-mania did shock me at how fast Joe Flacco was able to pick up the Browns' offense. Not necessarily that he did pick it up, but that he did so quickly. Does that mean that Joe is a franchise quarterback and we need to throw $30 million at him in order to stay in Cleveland? I would say no. I don't think any team will give him that kind of money to be their franchise quarterback, and I've given you the reasons. I don't think that they will believe that he can play at that level for 17 games and playoffs. However, I believe that he is better than DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I believe that he is significantly better than P.J. Walker. I think that if he wants to be the backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, that they should certainly make him an offer that might have bonuses in it in case he has to play games. Might be based on the number of snaps that he takes, things like that. But I'm not sure that that's what he wants to do. He might decide that he'll retire again, and if somebody wants him, he'll unretire if the right situation comes about. So I'm not sure what will happen. I think he likes Cleveland. It's been a great season for him. I'm not sure whether he will automatically resign just because this experience has been so great. I think he may decide that he'll try to repeat the strategy of last year, wait for the phone to ring if he gets a good starting opportunity due to injuries on a good team. Also, I would say this, that he's scored a lot of points. He's done very, very well, but he's also scored a few points for the opposition. So it's not been all sweetness and light. It's been a different style of play than we had at the beginning of the year. So he's scoring a lot of points. These are higher scoring games than we're used to. The over-under should probably be bounced upward by 3 or 4 points compared to what we've seen in the early part of the season. He impacts that significantly. It's just a different style of play. We're no longer just trying to hold on to the ball and trying to let the defense win. We're putting the ball up for grabs sometimes and figuring that we're going to make more yards, and it's worth taking the risk of interceptions. So, yeah, I want to talk. I'm still grumpy that we don't have more backup options. Deshaun Watson is somewhat better, and he is a lower injury risk than Flacco, even though Deshaun Watson himself is not all that super healthy. Deshaun Watson, let's not forget, is doing it on 2, not just 1, but 2 repaired ACLs, and now he's got shoulder surgery. That's not great for a quarterback. He's not the healthiest guy that we could imagine for the position, but he is healthier, I think, than Flacco. He's certainly younger. He has a chance to to recover and still have a full season. But I don't know that it's really. It doesn't strike me that that's a $230 million investment. DTR also is, young. We like that, but he's undersized. He is a bit of a dual threat, but I don't know that I want to have him be tackled all that often because he's so small. He needs to learn to protect himself and the ball. Probably, didn't finish the thought here, but probably he needs to be a backup and probably not a long-term solution as a starter. And then PJ Walker, same comment really as DTR. He's undersized. He's elusive. He's not as fast as DTR, but he is elusive. He's not really a dual threat at the NFL level. I think that he is capable of leading a team. He does have that X factor at quarterback, but he's not going to be a dual threat, and he's somebody that should be invited to compete for that number 3 position. And if we can sign him to the practice squad, great, let's do it. I want to see actually 3 players on the active squad, and I want to see another guy at the practice squad level. There's no reason not to do that because there's 16 players now in the practice squad. One of them should be a quarterback. We have more injury risk at quarterback than most of the teams at the NFL. We need to recognize that fact and prepare for it. So, all right, so Flacco, not a franchise quarterback. Watson, a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. We need to have plans to prepare to deal with injuries at that position. That's just who we are at the Cleveland Browns. Okay. All right. Okay, I want to conclude with one more. The Broncos fans are going to suffer before the Browns fans, so let's watch this situation. The Broncos are going to take their salary cap hit in 2024 and 2025 unless they decide to patch things up with Russell, restructure his contract, and make him the starter again. That's still a possibility, but it really sounds like they're deciding that they're going to part ways with him. They're going to have draft picks and cap space again in 2026. that says to me that it's going to be pretty miserable in 2025 for them. Um, the Browns, remember, they're carrying some excess cap space that they can carry over into next season, but they really have 3 years that they've got to pay large amounts of money to Deshaun Watson, 2024, 2025, and 2026. It's possible that they can keep the window open in 2024, but the carryover funds from 2023 are going to be all gone after 2024, and so 2025 and 2026 are going to be very lean, and especially if they decide that they want to cut ties with Watson and start a rebuilding process, they're going to take the cap hit, and it's going to be a big one. So if that happens, they're going to be doing it with a lot of NFL minimum players, and they'll be trying to stash away draft picks and saving cap space like they did in the 2017-2016 time frame. It's going to be just like the Sashi Brown years, so hopefully not quite that bad. But it's going to be, those are going to be hard years. Right now, 2023 and probably 2024 are going to be good years for the Cleveland Browns. This is the time that the window for the playoffs is open, and that's what we hope. This is our time. It's not going to be forever. The Browns have always thought that they were going to have a period of overspending in which they contend for the playoffs, and then there would be a rebuilding cycle. So they've always planned that, and it's not been the same business plan as like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, where they feel like they can win and be a contender every season. That's not the way the Browns planned it, and they've always thought that there would be a recharging period that would last 2 or 3 years before they could contend again. So that may be coming up, and it may not be pleasant. So that's 2020 or 2024 in the future. I think 2024 might be the last year that the Browns can contend. I hope I'm wrong about that. But let's enjoy the playoff run this year. We never know if it'll come around again. And this season, there's every reason to think that the Browns will have a puncher's chance in every playoff game that they survive, one game at a time. Let's just see what happens. This is going to be a memorable season. All right, well, Happy New Year, everybody, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Ta-ta for now.